Some places hold secrets, dark, ancient secrets that have lingered for generations. Imagine walking into a house that feels wrong. The air is colder, the silence is heavier, and every shadow seems to be watching. What would you do if every room held a whisper, a warning of something unseen? Tonight we unravel the chilling tale of the Henderson family who moved into a house that would be their last. They thought it was a fresh start, a place to leave their past behind. But they didn't know that the past can sometimes come back for you. In the winter of 1985, the Henderson family, a mother, father and 2 young children, moved to an old Victorian house nestled in a small, isolated town. It was a fixer-upper, a place with character, the realtor said. The neighbours kept their distance, and some even cast worried glances, whispering about the house's dark past. But the Hendersons laughed it off. Ghost stories were for kids, right? It all started with little things. At first, they were easy to dismiss, mere quirks of an old house, a misplaced object here, a cold draught in a warm room there, and that unsettling feeling, the feeling that they weren't alone. It was as if the house itself was trying to communicate, to send a message. The mother, Sarah, was the first to notice. She would hear faint whispers at night, whispers she couldn't quite make out. They seemed to come from the walls, the floors, the very air around her. It was as if the house was alive, breathing secrets into her ears. Her husband, Mark, dismissed it as old house noises, settling wood and rusty pipes. He would laugh it off, saying it was just the house's way of settling in for the night. But Sarah knew better. She felt it in her bones. But soon the whispers grew louder, and strange shadows appeared in the corner of her eye. They would dart away the moment she tried to focus on them, leaving her questioning her sanity. Were they real, or just figments of her imagination? She could swear she saw someone, or something, watching her. It was a presence she couldn't shake, a feeling of being constantly observed. Every creak, every groan of the house seemed to carry a hidden meaning, a warning. The children began complaining about nightmares, dreams filled with twisted faces and eerie voices calling their names. They would wake up in the middle of the night, screaming, their little bodies trembling with fear. Sarah and Mark tried to comfort them, but the nightmares persisted, growing more vivid and terrifying with each passing night. The family gathered in the living room, discussing the strange occurrences with worried expressions. They tried to rationalize it, to find a logical explanation, but deep down they knew something was terribly wrong. The house was no longer just a home. It had become a place of dread, a place where the line between reality and nightmare blurred. As the days turned into weeks, the sense of unease grew stronger. The clock seemed to tick louder, the shadows grew longer, and the whispers became more insistent. The family huddled together, seeking comfort in each other, but the fear was palpable, a living, breathing entity that had taken hold of their lives. One day, while cleaning out the attic, Mark stumbled upon an old journal. Pages filled with strange cryptic symbols and what looked like warnings. The attic was a place he rarely ventured into, filled with forgotten relics and memories of the past. Dust particles danced in the dim light filtering through the small window, adding to the eerie atmosphere. As he picked up the journal, he felt an inexplicable sense of dread, as if the book itself was warning him to stay away. As he flipped through it, a chill ran down his spine. The symbols seemed to move and shift on the page, almost as if they were alive. Each page he turned revealed more unsettling content, drawings of ominous figures, maps of unknown places, and cryptic messages that seemed to be written in a hurry. The air around him grew colder, and he could almost hear whispers echoing in the attic. Written on the last page in shaky handwriting were the words, "It's coming for us. We can't escape." The handwriting looked desperate, as if the writer was in a state of panic. Mark's heart raced as he read the words over and over, trying to make sense of them. Who wrote this? And what were they so afraid of? Mark tried to ignore it, pushing the journal out of his mind. He placed it back where he found it, hoping that leaving it alone would make the unsettling feelings go away. But the sense of unease lingered, gnawing at the back of his mind. He couldn't shake the feeling that he had disturbed something that should have remained hidden. But Sarah was growing more and more terrified. She had always been sensitive to the supernatural, and lately she felt an oppressive presence in the house. Her dreams were plagued by nightmares, and she often woke up in a cold sweat, feeling like she was being watched. The atmosphere in the house had changed, becoming heavy and suffocating. She found scratch marks on the walls, messages that seemed to shift and change every time she looked at them. The words were cryptic and ominous, warning of impending doom. She tried to show them to Mark, but they always seemed to disappear when he was around, making her question her own sanity. The walls seemed to be alive, whispering secrets that only she could hear. One night she swore she saw a figure, a dark shadow standing at the foot of her bed, staring at her with hollow, empty eyes. She was paralyzed with fear, unable to move or scream. The figure seemed to be watching her, its presence filling the room with a sense of dread. When she finally mustered the courage to turn on the light, the figure was gone. But the feeling of being watched remained. Sarah knew that whatever was haunting them was real, and it was only a matter of time before it made its presence known in a more terrifying way. Then, one fateful night, it all unraveled. The storm outside was fierce, with thunder rumbling and lightning illuminating the old creaky house. The wind howled through the trees, making the branches scratch against the windows like skeletal fingers. The family sat down for dinner when a loud, echoing bang shook the house. Plates rattled and the chandelier above them swayed ominously. The noise was so sudden and intense that it felt as if the very foundation of the house was being torn apart. The lights flickered, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. An eerie silence filled the air, broken only by the occasional creak of the old wooden floors. It was as if the house itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. Mark decided to investigate, heading upstairs, but he never came back. The staircase seemed to stretch on forever, each step echoing in the vast emptiness. The darkness swallowed him whole, and the family downstairs could only listen in growing dread. Sarah and the children began to panic. Their hearts raced, and their breaths came in short, fearful gasps. They huddled together, seeking comfort in each other's presence. But the fear was palpable, almost suffocating. She heard his voice calling from outside, but it was distorted, almost inhuman. It was a chilling sound, like nails on a chalkboard, and it sent shivers down her spine. She peered out the window, but all she could see was the storm raging on. The children clung to her, terrified, as shadows seemed to close in around them. The darkness in the room grew thicker, almost tangible, and the air felt heavy with an unseen presence. It was as if the house was alive and it was watching them. Suddenly the youngest, Timmy, began to scream. His eyes were wide with terror and his small body shook uncontrollably. He pointed toward the hallway, his finger trembling, and his voice was a high-pitched wail of pure fear. He pointed toward the hallway where a pale figure was slowly approaching, a woman with sunken eyes wearing a tattered, old-fashioned dress. Her movements were slow and deliberate, and her eyes seemed to bore into their souls. The air grew colder with each step she took, and the family could do nothing but watch in horror as she drew closer. In a frenzy, Sarah tried every door, every window, but they were all sealed shut. Her heart pounded as the shadowy figure crept closer. She could feel its cold breath on her neck, hear its hollow whispers, "You can't leave, this is my home." And then, silence. The Henderson family vanished. By morning, the house stood empty, silent as the grave. The Henderson family was never seen again. To this day, townsfolk say you can hear their voices trapped in that cursed house, calling out to anyone who dares enter. The house has claimed them, just as it claimed others before. Some secrets are meant to stay buried.